Have you ever wondered how your sales performance compares against your competitors and peers? The B2B Sales Benchmark Report provides the definitive guide to what success looks like in 2021. See how you compare in terms of win rate, sales cycle, average deal value, relationships, and engagement. You can see the results and get the full report at ebster.com/B2B-sales-benchmarks.
Another area that we focused on is just how we approach our prospects. So the idea of sequencing and having a more automated function was really designed to free up our reps' times. You know, if I know that I have to make 10 calls in a day and send 20 emails, I want to spend the most time on high priority contacts.
This is Sales Ops Demystified, the number one most downloaded podcast in sales operations. We invite the brightest minds in sales ops onto the show to deconstruct the what, why, and how behind rep productivity, forecasting, metrics, and all things revenue. This podcast is brought to you by Elsevier, a revenue intelligence platform used to identify risk in the pipeline and score customer engagement, and is sponsored by the Global Sales Operations Association and the UK Revenue Operations Network. Hello and welcome to another very special episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. Today, we're joined by Tim McGee, who is currently a VP of Strategy and Sales Operations at Elsevier. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
So let's kick off and understand how we initially found our way into sales operations.
Yeah, no, it's always a journey. You know, I feel I've always been in or around sales in all of my different roles. I started in what is now a broad-based customer success type of role, you know, handling renewals, customer trainings, usage and reporting. And from there, it just led to a natural switch into product management, you know, hearing the voice of the customer and ultimately what the product needs to be to really enable sales in the future. You know, I think in these roles, I've always been a person who's looked at a challenge or, you know, a broken process and said, how can I make it better? Even if it wasn't mine or if it was outside of my scope or my remit, you know, process efficiency, removing barriers, challenging historical norms is kind of how I've always handled any situation or any role that I've been in. And I think this mentality or this approach kind of put me on the radar for, you know, for someone who was heading up sales operations at the time. And they began a small grooming process to bring me into the fold of sales operations. And then I think once I took over sales operations at a company called IMS Health, which is now IQVIA, you know, I was certainly ready for the job based off of that grooming and some of my past roles.
The grooming, yes, the grooming process makes sense. We had a recent guest who also stated his passion for process improvement led him to sales ops. Do you think this is just something like that? You think that process improvement is a big part of sales ops and therefore it attracts people like you and our other guests?
Absolutely. You know, process improvement and product management, I think, are really big staples of the role. You know, in sales operations, it seems a lot of times it's a catching ground for everything within the organization. You're that group that sits between sales and the rest of the organization. So, you know, projects, things that come up, things that need to solve, typically, I think, come to sales operations, including a lot of those fire drills. And being able to, you know, to figure out where something is breaking, what the challenge is, and then ultimately fix it or lay out a roadmap to fix it is definitely critical for a sales operation or commercial operations role.
So please paint the picture of the Elsevier sales operations function and sales function, just for the listeners to get some context of what we're working with here.
Yeah, and that's a great question because I feel like in every organization, sales operations can be a little bit different in what they do. So, So my key role is sales strategy and operations. So really, anything that we do with the sales organization, does it make sense? Do we have the right number of people? Are they situated in the right places? Are we compensating them the right way? Are we training them the right way? My goal and how I pitch my role to others is we remove all those barriers for sales. My role is to make it easier for sales to do their jobs effectively and to be that conduit to marketing, finance, commercial, product organizations, and even the leadership. My day-to-day looks like, the responsibilities for sales training, sales compensation, design and administration, BI and reporting solutions, as well as our systems and tools. So, our CRM systems, our go-to-market systems, our compensation systems, et cetera, all sit within my camp.
And roughly how many people are there within your sales ops function?
I have a department of about 28, and that includes our customer contracting organization too. So a lot of folks are in the contracting group. My core sales ops function is about 10 individuals that handle everything outside of sales contracting.
And then we also have approximately or just over 100 sales reps that you guys are working with. Yeah.
So I sit in the clinical solutions division of Elsevier. It's our health division, and I'm responsible for North American operations. So U.S. and Canada, we have just over 110 reps today. Elsevier as a whole has just about 1,000 sales representatives in totality.
So we mentioned just before we started recording about how you guys are, let's say, modernizing the sales process post, and during COVID-19. Could you share a few things that you're doing that have either worked or not worked so far?
Yeah, a lot has changed, right? In the last year, we've kind of had to look at everything and start over and saying, okay, what is sales today and what is sales going to be in the future? And as I looked at some of those changes, we've seen sales changing over the last few years anyway into a more virtual and a more remote environment. And as a whole, I think COVID really just hit that acceleration button. So what we wanted to do is really understand, what do we need to be doing to sell? Does our message change? Does the way that we present our message change? Do we have the right tools and technologies in place to capitalize on this new environment? We work. Our biggest customer base is healthcare providers in the U.S. They're going through a lot right now. They're having to pull new people into jobs that they haven't done for a while. They're dealing with the virus and the pandemic themselves, and their priorities have changed. And we had to think, okay, is the way that we typically went to market the same? No. And what do we have to do to continue to drive opportunities forward? Continue to put our solutions in the hands of physicians and nurses to improve patient outcomes. And then ultimately, how do we use that in-house? Are we getting the data and insights that we need? Are we still able to coach the same way that we did previously? So we've launched solutions around conversation intelligence. So we can now hear our customer conversations, hear directly from the customer in a remote environment of what they're facing, the challenges that they have, and as well as coach our own team. So is our message still on point? Are we resonating the way that we think we are with our customers when we listen back and play it? What other insights and observations when you're having a conversation back and forth with customers? Sometimes you miss things. Sometimes you're scribbling a note down. Being able to have that active listening, knowing that you have a tool behind the scenes that's powering your conversation, that's going to give you some real-time feedback after you hang up is really important for us. Another area that we focused on is just how we approach our prospects. So the idea of sequencing and having a more automated function was really designed to free up our reps' times. If I know that I have to make 10 calls in a day and send 20 emails, I want to spend the most time on high priority contacts. I want to spend additional time on that email that I think is going to get the most legs for my selling effort. Those feelers, those darts that I'm throwing on a few, far out prospects, I don't want to spend a lot of time on them. I want something a little bit quicker and more automated. And then, I think the final solution is, media is changing. I get hundreds of emails a day from someone trying to sell me something. How do we break through that mess and actually get people to look at our emails and respond? And we've invested in video solutions as well, so that we can have, emails that look like these conversations and have that connection point when we're no longer sitting across the table from someone, sharing a cup of coffee or having a lunch with a prospective client.
Okay, sounds like there's a lot going on. Have you been driving those changes, or like over the past 6 months, you've sat down and you've either researched or thought out the ideas yourself, or is there someone within your team that you've been working with?
Yeah, the idea came out of our group. So it was something that we really believe in strongly. And, we have great partners in our business technology group. So, we raise the idea, we say these are the solutions that we're interested in, and then we work with our tech teams to make it happen. And I think with our technology teams, they've appreciated that a lot has changed as well, and that we're launching something new. And I definitely think, across the rest of the organization, we have folks looking at us saying, hey, how's this going to play out? And could we be the next ones to sign up for that? So it's definitely an exciting time. The first quarter of this year is going to be really telling on how this all turns into an ROI for us. But they're great solutions, and we're definitely excited to be the first at Elsevier to be using them.
Awesome. Talking about relationships with sales reps, you have, it's clear, have worked with a number of reps throughout your career. Do you have anything to share about how to effectively build those relationships so you can help them improve, etc.?
Yeah, relationships with sales are incredibly important. The way that you speak to them, the way that your message is received is all critical. The biggest thing that I see out there is being empathetic and being authentic. I'm not doing what they do every single day. I don't understand the hardships that the sales team is going through trying to sell in a pandemic. I see what happens to the opportunities. I see the feedback from our customers on calls. But I'm not there. My paycheck isn't dependent on making that sale. So I think it's really important to understand where the sales team comes from and the challenges that they're facing on a day-to-day effort, and then figuring out what can we do as a sales operations group to make them more effective, to save them 5 clicks, to make them more powerful in the messages that they send. So everything that we do kind of has the sales team in mind. I think about how we roll out some of these solutions that are new for sales, sometimes a little bit uncomfortable for sales teams, and say, hey, we're going to be recording all of your calls moving forward. But at the same time, we preach the benefits. We say, what is in this for you? How is this going to make you better? And we've seen the results, 2-3 weeks into using a solution saying, hey, I don't want to give this up now. I'm totally invested in this. This is making my life a lot easier and better. And being able to do some of that up front. I also think partnering with sales is very important too. When we roll out solutions, I always try saying, this isn't a sales ops solution. This isn't something that we're trying to push upon you. This is a solution for sales. We have a sales advisory board. They give us feedback. They tell us how they want it to be. So a lot of times it's a solution built for sales by sales. We're just there as project managers. We're there to help facilitate the situation.
I'd also like to throw that one over to Alex. Alex is a sales engineer, I believe, at Elsevier. And so maybe from a slightly different angle, do you have anything to share on being effective or working effectively with reps?
Sure. I wear a number of hats, both working with people internally and also sort of consulting and working with some of our customers. I think it's the same. It's you always want to be understanding and someone, that's looking to help people out. I think almost goes without saying. And the key thing is ultimately is if you can help people and solve their problem, they're going to want to spend time with you as long as you're not being a jerk about it. So I think, that's the key thing I try and do is really try and understand what they're looking for and try and solve their problem. At the same time, sometimes you have a better perspective, more insight from what you've done and from being zoomed out and having talked to other people as well. And so but if you go and solve an initial problem that they can see first, you can then suggest some other things and you've earned yourself a platform to put your opinion out there.
Makes total sense. Back over to Tim. Over the past, just over 5 years, I believe you've been at Elsevier. What is the initiative or the tool or the process you have implemented that you think have had the biggest impact?
Well, we've certainly done a lot. It's been an adventurous 5 years. So, I look at that and I got to go with Salesforce, only because Salesforce kind of opened the environment for everything else, right? Salesforce is our hub for everything that we look at now moving forward. But, 5 years ago when I joined Elsevier, what I was looking at mostly was, we had Siebel as a CRM, which, isn't always the most modern solution out there. But we worked with our business technology team. We really stressed the importance of a solution like Salesforce. Our sales teams were clamoring for it. And, we were able to implement Salesforce as our sales-facing CRM there. Outside of that, it was a lot of Excel. And Excel is a great tool. But we were looking for more automation, more self-service, and frankly, more modernization. So we developed a technology roadmap that we put in place, Salesforce being key to that. But since then, we've launched, Tableau for our reporting and intelligence environments. We launched Exactly and Cent for compensation administration. Right now, we're looking at CPQ and contract management. We launched Franklin Covey as a selling methodology. And the key is every solution that we've launched over the past few years, it has to be in Salesforce, right? We want all eyes, we want all time being spent in one solution. So if it doesn't interface with Salesforce, we're not as interested in it because we want our reps in one place. They can find everything in one solution and tool, even if they're third-party solutions. And then I referenced a little bit about our conversation intelligence and our sequencing that we're doing too. That being able to interoperate with Salesforce is a very, very important part to how we look at solutions moving forward for the sales team.
Makes sense. And then the final or the penultimate question I want to ask is about the forecasting process. What is the sales ops role? And then what is also your personal role in the forecasting process?
Yeah. So forecasting has been an adventure over this last year, as I think a lot of people have experienced. Our forecast process is wrapped around a monthly cadence. So everything that we kind of do is developed around a cadence that we put in place with our sales team and our sales leadership, and how it how it goes from week to week throughout the course of the month. The month ends, you start it all over again. But specific to forecasting, we kick off each month with a process that we look and we gather together and put that forecast that goes from a rep level to the frontline manager level to the VP level, before ultimately, we sign off on it from the head of sales and the head of operations. From that point on, we do a mid-month check-in. This occurred actually, yesterday for us, where we look and we pull everything together and say, hey, 2-3 weeks ago, this is what you said was going to happen. Where do we stack up against it? Where's our risk? What do we really need to dial in on in the coming days? And then as we move towards the end of the month, it moves into a daily forecasting process where we want to make sure that we're not letting anything hang, that there's no internal hiccups taking place, and that everybody on the call knows what deals need to come in, where we're putting our focus and our attention on to hit that monthly number. Has this been a challenge over the past years or over the past year? Absolutely. Definitely a lot has changed with COVID. But we think, when we look at it and say, what do we need to do? It's continuing to have the open lines of communication and go back to that cadence, and then adjust as needed to what you have to do to deal with COVID.
I was just wanted to jump in before the last question with the one I was wanting to ask since near the start, which is your title of Vice President of Strategy and Sales Operations. Obviously, we speak to a number of people, a number of different titles, but this is the first time I've spoken to someone, I think, with strategy in the title. Is there something, I just wonder, is there a particular different bent you think that gives you that makes it different from maybe the way other people do sales ops?
I think that the strategy part comes into it a little bit around how you design your sales organization. When I started here, it was really, here's your sales team. Are these the right people? Are they in the right roles today? Are you organized in a way that makes sense for the products that we sell and the markets that we sell to? So just like, I think in my second year, if you go back to 2017 here at Elsevier, I looked at it and I said, I've learned enough now about our markets, who we're selling to, the teams that we have. We're not set up for that. We're not set up for success right now. We lacked an account management organization. A tremendous amount of our revenue comes from our ability to renew our current customers, like most organizations, and not having dedicated focus to your renewal stream is very, very important. So we created an account management organization. We transitioned our other selling reps into pure, quote unquote, hunter-based roles, only focused on new business. A lot of data points to the fact that you don't have both of those skills, right? You don't nurture and build a relationship at the same time as hunting for new business. They're two different personalities, two different traits. And we had to kind of rebuild our sales team to say, this is the way that we're going to go to market now. And what we saw from that was tremendous success. Our account management organization is thriving now. We continue to achieve our renewal goals and expectations and even overachieve them. And as I look at it now, when you say, what does strategy do? It's constant evaluation of saying, are we positioned not just for now, not for just this year and hitting this year's goals, but 3 and 4 and 5 years ahead to put ourselves in position to hit those growth targets in the future.
And Tim, the final question. Who in the world of sales ops would you most like to take for lunch?
That's a good one. There's so much out there. I was talking to my wife about it because we talk this exciting, geeky sales ops conversation all the time. When I thought about it, what always has fascinated me is the organization of UPS or any massive parcels company out there. And although he just recently retired, there's a guy by the name of George Willis who headed up operations and logistics for UPS. And I always just thought it would be interesting to sit down with George and just talk about his career. I think he was with UPS for over 30 years in a variety of roles, but just, the concept of moving millions of packages across the globe. How do you deal with holiday spikes? The boom of internet, of internet retailers, how that changed the game for shipping of parcels with all that demand. The Amazon impact, right? It's massive what Amazon did to the world and how did that impact both, FedEx and UPS and DHL, et cetera. So I don't think it would be a lot of me eating in that lunch. I think I'd be playing your role, Tom, and asking a bunch of questions. But, I know I'd be scribbling notes the entire time as I tried to wolf down food and ask some questions.
And surely we should also give a shout out to your wife, who it seems is also in sales ops.
She is not. She just has to deal with all of my fun questions, which mean nothing to her sometimes. So.
Okay, awesome. This was probably a discussion with a larger size sales function and sales ops team than we normally have, which I think is really good for the audience. The thing that stood out most for me, and I think this is almost a symptom or a result of the fact you are the head of a larger team, is the final point you made about strategy. Because I think, and the point that it's constant evaluation of the direction. And I think that regardless of if you're managing 5 sales reps or 500, and also regarding of your rank within the sales ops team, the more of this strategy work that you can do, the more stepping away from the day-to-day operations, the more likely I think you'll succeed, especially in these times that are so turbulent or changing. So that's the thing that I took away, Tim. And I want to thank you so much for bringing that perspective to the show.
Yeah, no problem. It's been fun.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. If you are listening on a podcast listening application, then please subscribe, rate, and review. And if you have any questions about the show, if you know a guest, or if you have any questions about sales operations, just hit me up at tomhunt@ebster.com. That's tomhunt@ebster.com.